Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Toronto Ultra, the reigning Major 1 champions of Boston, they're looking to go back-to-back in Miami this upcoming weekend. Are they going to be the favourites to do so? Absolutely not on their recent performances, but Scrappy, CleanX and others on the team certainly believe there are many players in this league that are far better online than they will be when we get to LAN. Which teams are they potentially talking about? Are they some of their close competitors for the event? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. This unfortunately, if Mock 10, he was on a 97 kill streak actually with this crazy overpowered new gun, but he missed this shot and that was it. GG, 97 kill streak down the drain. Couple of stats to look at. We've got a couple of Toronto Ultra players on here actually as well. Scrappy is still topping the Slayer rating. This is effectively you extrapolate a series to game 5 round 11. How many kills are they expected to get in that particular series? Scrappy was, I think, quite a way ahead of the pack on this. Now that's not necessarily the case, but I think what this considers is 10 minutes of hardpoint per game, and standard control which goes to 5 rounds, and then like 11 rounds of search and destroy. How many kills they usually get in search, extrapolate that to 11 rounds, or 22 rounds I guess, game 2, game 5. That's your number. So this is in expected game 5 series, Scrappy will have 86.5 kills. HyDra will have 84.5. Simp is there, CleanX is there, Pred is there. Pretty impressive from Scrap to be fair, because there's no other ARs on this list. Maybe it makes sense. And I think HyDra's had a big performance as well over their last few matches, which probably makes sense on the Subliners' recent turnaround online. And that is one of the crucial things to think about, is the online performance here of the New York Subliners compared to what's happened on LAN back at Major 1. That is a big discussion. These on paper though, some of the top performers. Cellium was the highest overall KD with a 1.24. Shotzzy absolutely deserves to be on it. He had the highest kills, maybe not the highest, but he had 25.2 kills per 10, and I'm sure that he's topping some sort of statistical category this stage. Kismet had a 1.8 in search, and this is some attach. A top 4 KD in every mode this stage 2 qualifiers. Very impressive. How far can Vegas go? We discussed that a little bit earlier on today. They are, of course, far from the favourites. JurNii put together his Factor Cap tier maker list, and it's a funny list, really, because this is literally the standings from the stage. I mean, like, let's not beat around the bush here. OpTic were the number 1 seed. Subliners were the number 2 seed, sorry. FaZe were number 3. Ultra number 4. Vegas were number 5. Thieves are number 6. 7, 8. And then I think it was like 9, 10, 11, 12 or something. But the 4 teams that didn't make it, right? So, yeah, well done, Methods. You've successfully read off the CDL standings of this stage, and you've put it into a tier list, which is, to be fair, not far off what you might expect. But yeah, there's no way to me that FaZe and Ultra are significantly less likely to win this event than OpTic or the Subliners. To me, I think it's just wide open between all of those teams, and every time I try and come up in my head with which 2 teams are going to be in the finals, I think, well, it could very much easily be another one. Now, one team that won't be in the finals, more than likely, is the Seattle Surge. I know that Trey was roasting them pretty hard on the Don't Drink episode that we did the other day, when he said that, yeah, he could load it with 3 iridescent players, or certainly Haggy, Zuma, and Octane, and probably take them down. And RC is actually the replies to this one, and RC is a good sport on all the trash talk that does come his way, because, you know, the reality is he gets a fair bit of trash talk nowadays. The team ain't doing so well. Individually is not doing so well. I hope they can find a way to turn it around, but it just doesn't seem especially likely on the current evidence we have. And even their search and destroy is still okay on paper, but it's just because it started out so well. These are the numbers though, and Ultra have fallen off dramatically. Let's not forget, Ultra didn't lose a search in Major 1 in Boston, but now, over the course of the season, they are 13 and 8. This was actually the big talking point that we discussed earlier today in terms of, well, who the favourites for the event. Subliners have the best search in the game right now. FaZe has looked, well, they played Los Angeles Guerrillas the other day. They lost both of them. They lost that game 5 to Subliners, or whatever, they got 6-0'd on the high rise. So I think FaZe are a bit more vulnerable than they were previously. Surge are actually still up here at 14 and 8. OpTic are actually 12 and 14, which is kind of interesting, but they do have a positive round differential, because when they win, they tend to win more comfortably. When they lose, they tend to lose close games. Whereas a team like Thieves is 10 and 8 in search and destroy, but they actually have a negative round differential because, well, when they lose, sometimes they get slammed, and when they win, maybe it's a bit closer. So, you know, definitely interesting though to just keep your eye on here that Ultra are now 13 and 8. They still have a very high average differential because Ultra have 6-0'd or 6-1. A lot of teams this year in Search and Destroy. I think that there's maybe 7 or 8 6-0s we've had this year in Search. at least half of those involve Ultra in some way. Either them doing them or them getting 6-0'd, because they got 6-0'd by Legion on Rio the other week. They got 6-0'd by OpTic, of course, on that game 2 they played, which was a Karachi, right? And they nearly got 6-0'd, of course, on the final map of the series as well, on that terminal search and destroy where Pred nearly had the 1v1 against Ultra. So that is just the key thing to look at, because when you go to events like this, especially events where it's so wide open, the win condition for the event tends to be excellent search and destroy play and just a deep map pool in general. Like, I don't think you're going to be able to get by on lackluster search, and that's where OpTic, I think, in the Subliners will have, you know, they'll be feeling confident that FaZe and Ultra are vulnerable in those modes, and just generally, Ultra's map pool is not as deep as it has previously been when Skid Row search was in the map pool, and while it does seem Toronto like Rio, the other teams around them seem to like that map as well, right? So one of the big talking points of last weekend was this OpTic game chat style podcast, and what Toronto are also cooking up themselves. The OpTic guys are also talking about the worst map in CDL history. To me, it's got to be something from MW90. That's what the boys discuss. They talk about Piccadilly. They talk about Ramaza. I actually think Arklov Peak, for Search and Destroy, was pretty damn good. I know they played it in Hardpoint at the start of the season. That was an awful idea. I didn't even think Gavutu was that bad. Ramaza, I hated Ramaza. I genuinely hated Ramaza. So that might be my one. I'm actually quite passionate about that. Even Artetes said this as well, which of course is Expo, Hilmelmat Expo, whatever it was called, in last year's game that they added into the title when they replaced Fortress Control. And I don't know, it wasn't a great map. I don't think it was the worst in CDL history though, by quite some margin. But obviously when OpTic put this on, Toronto say, glad we can influence you guys. This will be great for the league. More content for more teams, because they've also been messing around with their own podcast that they put live yesterday. So some good moments in this, some good clips in this, as you might well expect. Wanted to really share what they had to discuss on, well, the superstar discussion a little bit, especially what Scrappy says on certain players in the league, but also just the online versus LAN debate. Toronto have definitely taken a different approach online over the last couple of weeks to some of the other teams. They've, I don't know if they've taken it less seriously, but their focus has been on just improving as opposed to necessarily winning, getting the 10 points. They went down 2-0, they got the fidget spinners out. Their feeling really is that when they get to LAN, it's going to be a very different story. Now, many top teams think this way, but as CleanX says, if you listen closely, some players on LAN are just absolutely terrible. So, which players are you talking about?
Because you just, I mean, it's just like you're cruising in the first 4 matches, and then
you're not really like learning anything.
Like we hadn't scrimmed FaZe, OpTic, one of the other good teams. We scrimmed New York a little bit, but we haven't scrimmed them in literally weeks.
I even heard Paco after their match against LAG. He's like, dude, I can't even get a real rep.
Yeah,
it's facts though. It's like you can't even play.
Like people are testing maps, and you're just like,
you're 3-0 on them, and it's like, all right, my weekend's done.
My job here is over. I mean, LAN versus online. Next topic. I mean, LAN's just more,
bro. Let's just be honest. There's some
is
people
that
that
even a
are
conversation?
just fucking shit on
back in my day,
people just
online
play
was
different.
online.
People just play different.
Like,
It's honest. It's facts.
Obviously, S&D we tried to improve on, but then when we come to LAN, the game is completely different. Let's be honest.
It's, some people love it online.
People just don't make the same plays.
Yeah.
People are way more afraid to run around.
Does happen. Game slows down
incredibly. I'm ironed.
You're ironed.
I'm sound whoring. I'm loud EQ on LAN.
Earbuds in.
Yeah, let's just get out of there.
White noise cranked.
Exactly.
But yeah.
There's not much to say about that. It's just like
LAN
is just 100 times.
If you even remotely argue that online's anywhere near LAN, like you need to be studied.
Yeah. Also,
simple as
people take a lot of stock into online. Like obviously,
well,
what the
now
fans have to say.
7 matches, 70 points are online.
Yeah.
One can
it just means there's just like it just means so much more for the bottom teams than like us. Like it's, I mean, like if I'm good, but it's true though. Like it's true. If you look at the drop off of the league, it's just.
Here we go.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just making up.
Look at the superstars at the top, by the way.
That side of the table's looking nice.
Scrap is number 1. Hang on, we've made it to star there, though.
Yeah, look at us.
Star. Let's go. Well, you go star then.
Star to average.
Star to average.
Barely pro.
Star means
barely
good.
Pro. Barely pro is fucking.
Who's in
barely pro? Who's in barely pro? Is
that the whole Miami team?
This guy's a hater, bro. Who's made that?
Jesus.
Chandler.
Barely a pro.
We're giving out gas.
Is that
I'm not giving gas.
Holy.
Go squad wipe in there.
Barely pro is insane.
Yeah, maybe below average is
superstar
better.
to start and average.
Something like.
There's just no good way to put the last tier in anything.
I don't know.
People say D like it's not F.
I mean, I don't really know what to tell you. It's just some people are just dog shit. Some people are good. I don't know what to say.
I mean, yeah. I think it's hard to like define like a superstar compared to a star. Like everyone has their fucking day.
Everyone has their moment.
Honest.
Every dog has its day.
So I would imagine they're talking about some of the teams lower down in the league, but it's not like Ultra have had problems with those teams. That's what I find kind of interesting about this statement. It's just that Toronto have beaten all of those respective teams. Now, yes, teams like Vegas, for example, Toronto went close with. They were close with the Minnesota Rocket. They went to 5 on that series. So there was a couple of series that kind of implied that Toronto weren't the absolute unbeatable dominant force that they were during Major 1 when the Major 2 qualifiers got underway. But they still beat all of those teams, right? Okay, the Vegas series was really competitive. They got 6-0 in that game to Surge. Game 4 on the Rio was like 250-247, really close game that Ultra eventually closed out and won the series 3-1. But Ultra still won all of those games. The games they lost this stage, of course, were to FaZe and to OpTic. They didn't play the Subliners. That would have been fascinating if they did, just to see where those two teams stack up at the moment, because Ultra is still the number 1 seed. But the feeling is that most of these teams, it's a different ball game when you go to LAN. And even this is true for Ultra during Stage 1. They were obviously very good during their Stage 1 qualifiers, but they were not as good as they were when they got to LAN. And I do still feel like overlook Ultra at your peril. There are reasons to believe they shouldn't be as good now as they were at Major 1. I think that other teams have improved. But also with Skid Row Search and Destroy going to their Search and Destroy looking a bit more vulnerable, they're not going to be undefeated in Hardpoint and Search this upcoming weekend. Highly unlikely for Ultra. But it is possible that they will still be significantly better. So which other teams could they be discussing, right? Just because the big talking point really is this team in a bit of no man's land, which is the New York Subliners. They were very close to being 7-0 this stage. They looked very good online, but they looked pretty damn good online during the Stage 1 qualifiers. Not as good, not as efficient. They won a lot of series during the Stage 1 qualifiers, but it wasn't anywhere near as emphatic, I wouldn't say, than their recent performances over this most recent stage, although they did go OpTic, Game 5, Round 11, and they lost the 2 versus 2 when, of course, Dashy made the nice play on the Karachi there. So they were very close to being 7-0 online this stage, and 6-1 online last stage. But they turned up to the Major before and got slammed out top 12. Now, I really don't buy the idea that these guys are onliners, but if it happens again this event, then questions will be there, because they played Rocker last stage or last Major. In a controversial series, there were tech delays, there were pauses, there were problems with the servers or whatever. They lost that one. Then they played Ravens and got bodied out of the tournament, which was really impressive from Carolina. But I do think that Subliners, from a mentality perspective, I think there is a little bit of risk there. For some reason, I feel like if New York were to lose in a way that they go down 2-0 to a team they shouldn't, I don't know. I think they are mentally vulnerable in some sense. I think that they can be a bit compromised. That is one of their weaknesses. Other teams have it as well, but I think that is a potential risk for those guys. But at the same time, Sib is a LAN event winner on Seattle Surge a couple of years ago, and the rest of that team literally won the World Championship last year with 2 other events. So I don't really buy the idea that these guys are onliners, but the league standings right now kind of make it look like that. But, this I think is the event for New York to prove that's not the case, because if they go to this LAN and they get beaten by Boston and then they go out to Rocker, which would be how the bracket plays out, I mean, that would be remarkable, although I find it rather unlikely to believe. And of course, Scrappy and Toronto, they play Vegas in the very first round, of course, coming up tomorrow. Really excited, of course, for this tournament to get underway. Just one final thing to mention here, because I kind of skimmed over this statement from H yesterday because I'm kind of fed up with the superstar debate, but I think it's pretty obvious to say and to mention that he's basically saying how these players get worse on LAN. But if anyone knows anything about online to LAN, you'll know that this is the case for basically every single player. And the reason is quite obvious. When you play online, you play a random selection of the 12 teams in the league. When you go to LAN, let's say you start in winners, you play immediately a top 8 team. You don't play one of the terrible teams and losers. Usually, you play one of the top 8 teams, right? If you win that, you then play a top 6 team. If you win that, you play a top 3 team. And that's how it works. So your KD and your performances will almost always, Cellium and HyDra are like the only exceptions here of like the real top players that actually have better performances when they get to LAN. From a pure KD perspective, doesn't mean they're playing any better or worse necessarily, and you can argue that they might be playing better on LAN than online, but yet they're facing harder competition on LAN, and therefore those performances are harder to, replicate in some way. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. This is HyDra's POV, by the way. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.